Hello, my loves. Excuse my room. I have just moved back in after about 3 months worth of construction and I'm just piecing everything back together, but I still wanted to share this video with you guys because what's been on my heart this week is the importance of asking for more from other people and having standards for the way that people interact with you. And this can be really hard to identify because a lot of the times it's family members or long-term close friends that we find these issues with. We get into a bit of a, oh, this is the way that things have always worked, I don't want to speak up and ruin our friendship. And sometimes honestly you can't even feel that there are bad dynamics between you because they've been going on for so long. It's a lot easier to say no to someone who's just come into your life as a stranger. It's a bit harder when they've been there for a little bit longer, and this can include co-workers too. And so this has been really important for me. I have a couple of strong characters in my life who they're just not self-aware, and to me what comes to mind is it's like they're bleeding out. It's like they're bleeding out over everyone. And the dynamics that I've encountered, at least, is that everyone in the group knows about this person and they kind of work together to tiptoe around the person. It doesn't always look like tiptoeing, but it just means maybe we'll walk away instead of saying how we actually feel, or it will come out in a snide comment a bit later. And these people can often bring out the worst in good people too, because they come with very defensive nature. And when they come at you with that defensive nature, it feels like an attack. They're in attack mode. They're not in any sort of vulnerability. There's this expectation of, you need to do what I say because I don't feel like I'm asking for much and any decent person should be able to give that to me. And I think this is how they get us as an ex-people pleaser, recovering people pleaser, a healing people pleaser. I wouldn't want to cause a stir, more because they get very defensive whenever you give them any feedback. And I felt, well, it's not my place. Just because I'm really deeply into inner work and self-help, I have no right to, I felt like I was forcing that onto the other person. I felt like I had no right to speak up and say, no, what's happening here is you're saying this and it's making me feel that, and it means that I basically don't want to help you. Or maybe it just means that we end up being silenced and just kind of going, yeah, and then feeling trapped in the dynamic, never expressing how we actually feel. And that's incredibly dangerous. Not only is it really, really unfulfilling for us, but all that suppression gets stored in our body. It creates problems in other areas of our lives, and it essentially means that we can't have good, healthy relationships with the people that we want. And in my case, it was definitely blocking my romantic capabilities because I spent so much effort trying to numb down myself in order to not feel their attacks so much, that it meant that numbing meant that I couldn't then feel the good side. I couldn't be sensitive to the people who were actually trying to fill me up with joy, trying to actually be nice. I couldn't even detect that. I didn't even know what it looked like anymore because I just had to be very insensitive in certain scenarios. I couldn't be that vulnerable because I feared being attacked by someone who was completely unaware of what they were doing. And I realized, as I started to release a lot of shame, as I've started to own a lot of my anger that I have suppressed, because I actually am starting to think that this is the basis of people pleasing, that we have disowned our anger. And because we've disowned it, the only way that we can get around it is basically by manipulating, because people pleasing is a form of manipulation. You are acting a way that is not congruent with how you feel and what you think, and instead you are giving a reaction to the person in order to get a certain reaction from them. So that's to I'm going to say this because I don't want to be hurt, but you're still manipulating the scenario. You're not sharing from your heart. And as I say, at the very least, this just feels really, really icky. Even if you're not quite attuned to it, I promise you, if you're having problems in other areas, this is a huge, huge starting point. So I do want you to get angry, and it's probably good to journal about that. I highly recommend. Just automatic writing is a great tool. But I do want to share a few things as well. So the first thing that I want to say is, at least in your mind, require that they take personal responsibility for their actions. If they are not aware, they are choosing to not be aware. They are choosing not to be aware, because everyone has the option to do the work that we are doing, to have at least some introspection. And I always held off on it because I was very deeply into this work. This was the only thing that gave me a sense of hope, a sense of clarity. It's the only thing that made sense. So I went deep into it, and I made the mistake of thinking that, oh, it's like a hobby. So just because, I don't know, let's say someone enjoyed knitting, it doesn't mean that I have to enjoy it too. You know, I don't even have to do a little bit every day, or, you know, like I don't have to have anything to do with knitting. But when we are people, you have a responsibility, because you cannot exist and not create ripples in other people. Even if you were being invisible, you are still putting out an energy. You are putting out an energy of, don't look at me. There is no scenario where you are not putting out an energy. So you are impacting people whether you like it or not. And I've started to realize that I need to accept that people are choosing not to be self-aware, and that means they are choosing to hurt me. They are choosing to elicit this feeling of suppression in me. And I have spent years and years and years and years and years working on myself. So the first point, of course, should always be to work on yourself. I am in no means blaming other people. But when you've done all this work and something's still not adding up, and you've found a sense of wholeness when you're on your own, but you can't bring this to other people, then you need to start acting on those boundaries. You need to start speaking from your heart. You need to start backing up what you believe in. And I believe in that every person should take responsibility first. They should at least be having some amount of awareness. They should at least be taking some responsibility on trying to take care of their own emotions, not just saying, I expect you to do this, I need you to do this, and then because they're not aware, feeling like you can't really say anything. I had a huge conversation. They thought we were in an argument. I thought we were in a discussion. I later found that out. But that's also the difference between someone, it is going to feel a little bit like an argument to them if they're not very aware. But I used to have this dynamic of, I would always be quiet, and I, at this point, just went, you know what, no, I'm standing up for what I believe in. And I said, you know what, you keep on saying that you expect this person to do this for you and that person to say that to you and tiptoe around you, essentially. And I said, honestly, what I believe is that, okay, there are two things going on here. Yes, that person could do something to help you, and by all means have a conversation, but there is about 80% of your suffering that is happening right now because you are not taking personal responsibility, because you are not accepting that you are getting so triggered by this simple thing, and that's probably something to do with your past. And I just let this go, and I was like, you know what, this has been my truth for at least 15 years, and I have not once shared it with this person or anyone similar. And oh my goodness, the amount of freedom I feel now, the happiness I feel now at standing in the fact that, yes, I own that I think people should at least take some responsibility. Because a lot of people do, but there are some people who are just completely oblivious. And these are often the people who get angry at the first point of call, or, you know, angry at shop assistants, or just frustrated by small things, just quite very agitated, just very, very reactive in life. Nothing is ever their responsibility. They're a victim of their life, and they may not always say it as explicitly, but it's basically this, woe is me, or this is always happening to me. And it's time to protect your energy, just say, you know what, no, that is not coming into my field anymore. I am deciding against that. And it's never as devastating as you feel, because this person actually came back to me and thanked me afterwards. And as I said, they thought we were having an argument, and I was like, no, I just wanted, the only way you can get through to some of these people is if you match them on their anger level. I've tried before where I've kind of gently suggested and subtly hinted, and it just doesn't get through. You have to be strong, you have to push back. And if you're doing this kind of work, you're 100% not in the wrong. You have the position to be able to lead on this conversation, because that's what I didn't want to do before. I didn't want to preach. But it's not preaching, it is speaking from your heart, and you are basically telling them, hey, you were affecting me, when you get into this dynamic of woe is me, pretty much. The other thing that I wanted to say was, so a little bit on from that, the difference between vulnerability and the woe is me, help me dynamic that people bring. And so when we have these conversations, we want to come from a neutral place of vulnerability. We want to not attack them. And I think when people come at you with a very defensive and attacking nature, they can automatically put you in this attacking mode too. But you want to have these conversations when you feel like you are in a balanced place where you can hold your best interests and their best interests. And that's going to take taking a few punches. But if you actually want to continue a relationship with this person, then that's what you need to do. And it's not that bad. The first bit is always the hardest bit. You also need to understand that if they are complaining about something and they don't have a certain amount of vulnerability, if they don't have this genuine, I've tried and I just don't know what to do, and they're coming to you for help, if they don't have that, then they are in a complaining mode. So you can't actually help them from this standpoint. They are not open to receiving your help. They have to have a certain amount of vulnerability in order to have a deeper conversation with you, in order to have a let's change and transform our relationship, let's do something good for each other. Or even if they're just asking you to do something because it annoys them, it's perfectly valid for them to ask. If there's a certain amount of vulnerability there, if they're just using it as a way to blow off steam on you, that is not fair. So do discern the difference between if they're coming to you with genuine vulnerability, or if they are coming to you and from a standpoint of woe is me, I just want to complain. And there, I don't mean are they vulnerable in terms of, okay, yes, they have got themselves in scenarios where they don't have much money and they've got problems with friends, etc., etc., etc. I mean vulnerability in the moment, in that conversation with you. Are they offering you vulnerability in order to receive what you have to say? If this has been any help, then drop me a like and subscribe. I also have a ravishingly relentless course in the description box below, where we talk about protecting your energy more and just general boundaries and standing up for yourself. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, definitely check it out, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you, my loves.